chained beneath the alien sky, the sky. Above was dark purple with slow-moving clouds that looked like bruises across the heavens. The air was dry and sharp, like needles. In the middle of a cracked stone square stood a lonely figure. Her arms were raised above her head, chained to a thick stone pillar that had seen many punishments before. She was young, small and barely breathing. Her silver blue skin was marked with cuts. Her long black hair hung like a curtain of sorrow over her face. Her name was Seth Town. Around her was quiet. Aliens walked by without looking at her. Some whispered, some spat near her feet. Most just ignored her completely. Children were told not to look. Old people shook their heads. They believed she was cursed. They believed she deserved it. Za had not spoken in 2 days. Her lips were dry and cracked. Her stomach had stopped growling. Her legs had no strength left. But her mind was still awake. She remembered the trial, if it could be called that. No one listened. No one asked her side. They just shouted that her blood was wrong, half-blood. They said not pure, not worthy. She had cried. In the beginning, she had begged, but after the first night she stopped. Now she just waited for the end. The sun would burn her during the day. The cold would freeze her at night. Stones had hit her back. Dust had filled her lungs. She was ready for the silence of death. But then a shadow fell over her. She blinked slowly. It wasn't time for the sun to move. Someone was standing close. She forced her head to lift. What she saw made no sense. It was not one of her people. It was not a soldier. It was something strange, a human. He had brown skin, dark hair, and strange clothes. Bag was slung over his shoulder. He looked like a traveler or maybe trader, but his eyes were filled with something she had not seen in a long time. Pity. He stepped closer. The villagers nearby muttered. Some shouted warnings. One old man hissed, "Don't touch her, she's cursed," but they human didn't listen. He knelt in front of her. Gently he reached into his bag and pulled out a small bottle. Water. Fresh water. He opened it and held it to her lips. Hesitated. Was this trick a final test? But her throat burned too much. She opened her mouth. The water was like rain on fire. Her body shivered from the shock. She gasped. The human looked at her bruises. His face tightened. His hands moved too, the chains studying them. What did you did deserve this? He asked softly. She wanted to speak, but her voice was weak. Only one word came out. Nothing. He looked into her eyes. For a long moment he didn't move. Then he said, "That I won't leave you like this." The crowd began to grow. People shouted again, "Go away, human. She's a demon. Let her rot. She was born to a traitor." Still the human stayed. He sat beside her. He gave her more water. He tore a cloth from his sleeve and wiped the dirt from her face. He said nothing more. He just stayed. Saya wanted to ask why. She wanted to cry again, but her body was too weak. Her heart was not. For the first time in weeks, something lit inside her, a tiny flame. Hope. The wind picked up. Sand danced around them. Sky grew darker as night approached. The villagers left one by one. They didn't want to be near a cursed girl, and they didn't want to be near a human who dared to care. When the last person was gone, the human spoke again. "My name is Kale," he said. "I don't know your story, but I believe no one should die like this." Saya looked at him. She tried to speak again. Her lips trembled. Her voice cracked, but she made a sound that was not painted. Was her name Saya? Kale nodded. "Saya, I will return Tomorrow, then he stood up and walked. Away into the desert night, Saya stared. At the empty road where he disappeared. Her arms still hurt, her body was still. Weak, but something had changed. She was not alone anymore. Under the alien sky. Saya closed her eyes, and for the first time in days she did not dream of death, she dreamed of escape. The human who wouldn't walk away. Morning light poured down like fire as the twin suns of the desert world rose. Again. And GT, clear as throat. And GT. The sand was quiet, the wind soft, but inside Saya's bones there was still the ache of cold from the long night. Her wrists burned where the chains held. Her legs refused to move. She had not slept, not truly, but she had waited for something impossible. And then she saw him again, the same figure from last night. Dust clung to his boots, sweat streaked down his neck. But his eyes were sharp, focused. He had returned. Kale, he walked past the staring eyes of the villagers. No hesitation in his steps. Some people whispered, some laughed. The human thinks he can save her, they sneered. One old alien spat at his feet. Soldier watched with a lazy smirk, hand near his weapon, daring the human to try something foolish, but Kale didn't stop. He knelt beside her again. This time he brought a cloth dipped in clean water. He cleaned the crusted blood from her mouth. He offered her soft fruit wrapped in a thin leaf. She couldn't believe it. Her hands were chained, but he fed her. Piece by piece, slowly, carefully, she chewed like a starving animal. No one had ever treated her like this, not since her mother died. Kale looked up at the sky, then at the guards. You're really going to leave her like this? He asked loudly. The soldier grunted. She's marked. She's filth. Be careful, human. You keep talking like that and you'll find yourself beside her. Kale stood for a moment. His fists were tight. His body was tense, but he didn't fight, not now. He sat down next to Saya, just out of reach of her chains. If they won't free you, he said quietly, then I'll find another way. Saya stared at him with wide, confused eyes. Her voice was still broken, but she found the strength to whisper. Why? Kale glanced at her. His voice was calm. Because I've seen people left behind before. I've seen children die in cages. I didn't stop it then. I was a soldier. I followed orders, but not now, not again. Saya blinked. You soldier? He nodded slowly. Long time ago I came here for peace, trade. Quiet. I wasn't looking for this. She swallowed hard. The words stung her throat, but they came anyway. You should leave. They will kill you. Kale smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. Let them try. That afternoon Kale sat with her for hours. The sun beat down, but he stayed. He shaded her with his coat. He poured water into a cracked bowl and laid it beneath her lips. Some villagers gathered again. One threw a small stone at Kale's back. He didn't move. Why do you waste your time? A woman called out. She's nothing. She's more than any of you, Kale replied without even turning his head. That made them angry, but no one stepped forward. Not yet. As night came, Kale whispered, I'll return after dark. When they sleep, I'll bring tools. Saya's heart jumped. They will see. I'll be careful. Trust me. For a moment neither spoke. The silence between them was strange. Not empty, not cold. It was like the space between two flames slowly warming each other. Kale stood, dusted off his knees, and gave her one last look. Hold on, Saya, just one more night. Then he walked off. Again, not fast, not scared, he walked. Like a man with purpose, leaned back. Against the pillar, her arms still hurt. Her body still locked, but something new had grown inside her. Pain wasn't everything now. Now there was something else. Someone had seen her. Someone cared. She wasn't invisible anymore. As the night rolled in and the stars above blinked like frozen fireflies, Saya stayed awake, not from fear but from hope. For the first time in her life, someone had looked at her chains and refused to walk away. Her crime was being born. The morning wind was rougher than usual. It carried whispers, anger, and dust. Cale stood at the edge of the market, watching the townspeople move like shadows. No one greeted him, no one smiled. The moment he stepped toward the center square, the crowd began to thin, not because of who he was, but because of who he stood. Bezish was still there, chained to the stone pillar like a forgotten statue. Her skin was dry, cracked in places, her fingers barely moving, but her eyes, they opened when they saw him, and they didn't blink. Cale knelt beside her, again brushing away the dust that had settled on her face overnight. She didn't speak, but she didn't have to. He had returned, that was enough. A heavy voice echoed behind him. You again? Human? Cale turned slowly. A tall alien in dark robes stood with arms crossed. An elder, the way others stepped back proved it. Cale stood. Why is she still here? She hasn't been fed. She hasn't seen a healer. She hasn't even had a real trial. The elder chuckled coldly. There was no need for a trial. She was born guilty. Cale's jaw tensed. Explain that. The elder walked closer, eyes sharp. Her father was a traitor to our kind. He gave secrets to your people during the border war. And her mother, a lowborn outcast who never should have touched a blade, let alone a man. When the war ended, her bloodline was declared impure. We didn't kill her. We let her live. But then she tried to enter a healing school, claimed she wanted to become something greater. She forgot what she was. Cale stared at him. She wanted to learn. That's her crime. She dared to think she was equal, the elder replied, and now she's where she belongs. That's mercy. Cale turned back to see. She had lowered her gaze. Her lips trembled. The elder leaned in. Do yourself a favor, human. Go back to your ships. Go back to your metal cities. This world has no place for your kind or hers. Cale didn't move. He waited until the elder walked away, robes flapping like wings. Then he crouched beside Saya again. I'm sorry, Saya whispered. It's true, my father. They say he gave maps to humans. I never met him. My mother said he disappeared before I was born, but they hate me for his face. Cale looked at her closely. You're not him. You're not what they say. I tried, she said weakly. I studied every night. I passed their tests. I wanted to be a healer. I thought if I helped others, maybe they'd forget. He shook his head. You don't owe them anything. They failed you, not the other way around. For a moment her eyes watered, but she blinked fast and held it back. Cale checked the chains again. Rusted, thick, locked with alien tech. Not something he could break with a rock. He would need tools, real ones, and a distraction. I'll get you out, he whispered, even if I have to carry you through fire. Saya almost smiled. Suddenly a guard shouted, step away, human. Cale turned. The same soldier from the other day stood nearby, hand on his shock spear. You've been warned. Cale didn't back down. You can threaten me all you want, but you're not stopping me from giving her water. The guard growled. Next time, we take you to, Kale slowly stood. Never turning his back on them, he reached into his bag and left a soft cloth soaked in water beside Saya's chained hands. Then he walked away. Straight back and calm. That evening, Kale sat by a fire outside the town limits. He pulled out a hollow map and scanned it. Local power grid lines, patrol patterns, guard rotations. He had picked them up during his first week here. He never thought he'd use them. Now he studied every path that led to the center square. He wasn't just planning a rescue, he was preparing for war. Back at the pillar, Saya stared at the stars. Her eyes no longer searched for mercy from her own people. That hope had died long ago, but now a new light had risen, a stubborn, reckless human who didn't know when to quit. And for the first time, Saya began to believe that maybe, just maybe, her life wasn't over. It was just beginning. Risk. The night of fire and chains. Nightfall came fast. The wind howled louder than before. It pushed sand through the narrow stone streets like a whisper of something coming. The town was asleep, but not quiet. The walls still hummed with tension, like they could feel what was about to happen. Saya lay slumped against the pillar, body weak, but her eyes open. She had not slept, not after what Kale promised. He said he would come back tonight. He had meant it. She heard the softest sound, footsteps, careful and light, then a flicker of movement in the shadows. She didn't turn her head, but her heart raced. Kale emerged like a ghost from the dark, his figure wrapped in loose cloth to blend with the night. He knelt beside her, pulled a cloth from his pouch and covered her arms gently. I told you I'd come, he whispered. In his hand, he held a small tool, alien tech, stolen or bought. He pressed it to the chains. Blue light flickered, a spark, a hiss. Then nothing. He tried again. Same sound, same failure. I only have a few minutes before the next patrol circles around, he murmured, his voice calm. But Faya's voice cracked. Why do this? Kale didn't stop working, because I know what it's like to be locked in, something you didn't choose. I've seen cages. I've worn one too, not on my body, on my soul. Suddenly the lock gave a soft clicking. Saya gasped. One shackle was loose. Kale quickly moved to the other wrist, hands shaking slightly now, but before he could unlock it, a loud shout cut through the square. Stop right there. Kale spun around. 3 guards rushed in, spears glowing, boots pounding the stones. Kale jumped in front of Saya, arms wide. She's done nothing. Don't touch her. The first guard struck him across the face with the flat of his spear. Kale fell back, blood already dripping from his lips. Saya screamed, but her voice was weak. The guards grabbed Kale, dragging him to his knees. One kicked him hard in the ribs. Another yanked the unlocking tool from his hand and crushed it beneath his boot. Trying to free a prisoner is a crime. Human, the lead guard growled. Now you'll rot with her. Saya's heart pounded. No, he only wanted to help. The guard smirked. And now he'll die for it. Kale, bleeding, but still glaring, looked at her. Don't give up, he whispered. You're stronger than they. No, the guards dragged him away, his boots leaving trails of blood on the stones. He didn't fight them anymore. He just kept his eyes on her until they disappeared into the alley. The square was empty again, not silency as breathing shook. Her right wrist was free, but her left was still chained. Her fingers trembled. Her body wanted to shut down, but Kale's blood still stained the ground in front of Hirsch. She leaned forward, pain shooting Through her body, with effort she reached the edge of the cloth Kale had wrapped around her arm. Tucked inside was a thin piece of paper. No, not paper. Plastic sheet folded, hidden with shaking hands. She unfolded it. It was a map, a hand-drawn sketch of the town. Markings, patrol times, a red circle. Near the north wall, an old access tunnel, and beside it, written in rough letters, "If I don't make it, use this. Get out live." Her throat tightened. The human had planned not just to free her but to give her a way out, even if he failed. The girl they all left to die had been given a second chance by someone who had no reason to care, and now she had to move with one free hand. She reached behind the pillar. There, stuck between the stones, was something small, a metal shard Kale must have hidden earlier, sharp, thin, dangerous. She pulled it free, ignoring the pain as it sliced her palm. Then she turned to the chain on her left wrist. It took time. Her hands bled, her strength faded, but she didn't stop. She wouldn't let them wind. The time the sky began to lighten again, her left hand fell forward, free at last. Her arms dropped. Her body followed. She landed on her knees, gasping, unable to move, but she was free, not rescued. Free. She crawled across the square, past the dried blood, past the broken pieces of Kale's tool, until she reached the alley. Every part of her wanted to collapse, but she looked back once at the pillar, the place she had nearly died, and then she turned toward the mountains where the access tunnel waited. If Kale was alive, she would find him. If he wasn't, she would make sure his sacrifice meant something. Either way, she would not be forgotten again. A message through blood. The wind howled through the rocky cliffs as Saya stumbled across the wasteland beyond the town's edge. Her knees bled from crawling over jagged stone. Her arms hung limp at her sides. The chain from her left wrist still dangled, broken but not gone. Every step forward came with a scream inside her body, but she didn't stop. Not after what Kale had done for her. Not after the chains, the hunger, the silence. Not after she had seen someone finally fight for her. Hidden tunnel was where Kale had marked it, half buried beneath sand and vines. Saya dragged herself through the opening, blinking in the dark. Inside, the air was thick and cold. Metal walls stretched into a forgotten storage vault, long abandoned. She collapsed near the back wall and closed her eyes. She didn't know how long she slept. Hours, maybe. Her dreams were broken flashes of the guard's spear, Kale's voice, the sting of old memories. When she woke, the pain in her stomach screamed louder than anything else. She crawled to a dusty box, tore it open. Inside were old military rations, sealed but intact. Kale must have hidden them here long ago. She chewed one slowly, crying as her body remembered what food felt like, and then she found it. His messages, small data pad inside a metal case locked by voice. She tried his name. Nothing. She tried hers. Still nothing. Then she whispered the words he had said to her that night. "You're stronger than they know." The lock clicked. The screen lit up. Kale and LT Unk and GT voice filled the space. "If you're seeing this, then I failed. Maybe I'm gone, or maybe you had to run. Either way, I left this for you, Saya, because you deserve to live." Her hands trembled. "I wasn't always someone worth following. I've made mistakes, people I didn't save, orders I followed because I was afraid to break them, but this time I broke them for you. I saw what they were doing to you, and I couldn't be that silent man again. You reminded me of someone I Lost, someone who also believed in healing others even when the world broke. Her "You have that same fire," Saya touched the screen. Her tears fell onto the metal. There are weapons in the crate behind this pad. There's also armor, a small medkit, and training modules. I don't know what you'll do next. Maybe you'll run, maybe you'll fight. Whatever you choose, don't let them erase you. Your blood doesn't make you weak, it makes you different, and different is beautiful. The message ended. Za didn't speak for a long time. She opened the crate. Inside was light armor, small enough to fit her. If she adjusted the straps, she pulled it over her bruises, every piece fitting like a second skin. There was a short blade, dull but strong, and a wrist module that could be used for scanning, tracking, or recording. There were also old training chips. She slotted one into the wall unit. A hologram lit up showing hand-to-hand combat stances, basic blaster defense, first aid. Kale had given her the tools to survive, to learn to fight if she needed to, and Saya was ready to learn everything. Each day she trained, alone in the shadows of the mountain. Her cuts slowly healed. Her skin grew firm again. Her hands, once delicate, became quick. She practiced until her arms trembled, until her voice grew louder, until the nightmares faded. One night, while staring at the stars above the cave mouth, she heard a broadcast from a stolen radio in the storage unit. Human prisoner transferred to slave mines near the Black Edge crater. Resistance minimal. He remained silent. Her heart dropped. Kale was alive, but barely, and if no one acted soon, he wouldn't be. She stood silently, fists clenched, teeth pressed together. She looked down at her armor, then at the mark on her wrist where the chain had once been. She would not run, not anymore. The world had broken her once, but Kale had picked up the pieces. Now it was her turn to do the same. Tomorrow she would head to Black Edge Crater. Tomorrow the girl they left in chains would return, not as a victim but as a warning. Asterisk. The fire within her, the desert stretched like a sea of silent bones as Sean moved through the shifting dunes. Her feet pressed into ancient trails, her body wrapped in the armor Kale had left her. The rising suns painted her path in golden red, but her eyes stayed locked on the distant black ridge. That was where they had taken him. Black Edge Crater, a mining pit so deep that even sound didn't return, a place where prisoners worked until they collapsed, where voices faded, where hope was buried. But Saya wasn't just walking to save Kale, she was walking to become something more than they ever allowed her to. Before days she moved only at night. She studied patrols with her scanner, stayed low, drank water from hidden springs Kale had marked on the data pad. She watched people from cliffs and learned how they talked, how they moved, how they guarded the gates to the mines. By the fifth night, she reached the ridge overlooking the crater. It was worse than she imagined. The ground below was carved like a wound in the planet's skin. Fires glowed in the dark and machines roared endlessly. Prisoners in chains worked with bent backs, digging or with shaking hands. Guards laughed, barked orders, and struck anyone who slowed down. Za's eyes searched the crowd, then she saw him. Kale, he was thinner now, his face bruised, his hands torn open, but he still walked straight, still carried rocks in his arms like they weighed nothing. Still had that same look, one that told the world he hadn't given up. Saya's breath caught in her throat. She had no army, no weapons of war, just A blade, a scanner, and a heart that refused to break again. She waited until moonrise, then she slipped into the crater from the southern edge, sneaking between storage containers and shadows. She moved like smoke, silent, quick, unseen. The map on her wrist lit up each time a guard passed close. She paused, waited, moved again. Near the edge of the pit, she found a weapons crate, unlocked, carelessly left by a lazy guard. Inside was a stun baton. She gripped it tight. The moment came when two guards stepped away to laugh at a prisoner's fall. Seiya struck from behind, fast and brutal. The baton hissed. As it lit up, one fell without a sound. The other turned, but her blade was already moving. He dropped before he could scream. She dragged both bodies into the shadows, took one uniform, pulled the helmet over her face, and walked into the heart of the mine like she belonged. No one looked twice. Closer she got to Kale, the louder the waver. The blood in her ears became. He was near the central shaft, lifting crates onto a cart. One guard watched, and closely. She approached, pretending to check a console. The guard didn't even glance at her. She moved slowly, calmly, then turned sharply and slammed the baton into his back. He crumpled. Like Sano looked up in shock, breath catching in his throat. What? She pulled off the helmet. His eyes widened. Seiya, he whispered. She nodded quickly. Can you walk? He looked down at his legs. I don't know. We an LT Unk and GT. LL try anyway, she said. She threw his arm over her shoulder and helped him up. Together they moved toward the access ramp. Alarms hadn't started yet, but someone would notice soon. Halfway up, a shout echoed behind them. Then the alarm blared. Red lights flashed. They know, Kale said through clenched teeth. Let them come, she growled. Guards appeared at the top of the ramp. She pulled her blade. Keep walking, I'll stop them. Kale didn't argue. He stumbled forward. As she turned to face the first soldier, the man lunged, but Seiya ducked and slammed her blade across his leg. Another swung a baton. She blocked it with her arm, pain shooting through her. But she kicked him hard and sent him flying into the dirt. They were stronger, but she was faster and angrier. Another guard grabbed her from behind. She twisted, slammed her elbow into his jaw and dropped him. Then she grabbed Kale's hand. They ran up the final slope, through a fence and into the rocks beyond. Shouts chased them. Blaster fire lit the night sky, but they didn't stop. Not until the mines were far behind. Not until the stars above them were still again. Kale collapsed beside a boulder, gasping. You came for me? Seiya sat beside him, chest heaving. You came for me first. He smiled through bloodied lips. You're not the girl I found in chains anymore. Seiya looked at her hands. No, she said. I'm not. She was something new now. Something powerful, something free. The girl they couldn't kill. The stars above shone brighter than ever, as if they too were watching. Kale lay beside the small fire Seiya had built with dry roots and stone sparkers. His wounds were bandaged. His breathing was steady now. But the pain hadn't left his eyes, not from the beatings, but from the truth he carried inside. He looked at Seiya. Across the fire, she was awake, shoulders straight, her blade resting across her lap. Her eyes scanned the dark, sharp as a hawk's. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't trembling. The girl who had once been chained to a pillar and left to starve was now more than alive. She was unstoppable. Where will you go? Kale finally asked, his voice still rough. Seiya didn't answer. At first, She threw another stick into the fire, watching it crackle. Back to the town, she said at last. Kale raised his head. Are you sure? They'll never welcome you. I'm not going for welcome, she said, voice low but steady. I'm going so they remember me, not the version clears throat they left to die, but the one who walked back free. Kale stared at her for a long time. Then he nodded. The next morning they began the journey back through the sand. Kale still limped, but with Saya's help he moved faster each day. They stayed off the main paths. Word of the prison break had likely reached the town by now. Wanted signs might already be posted. Saya didn't care. She wasn't returning to beg, she was returning to speak. By the fifth night, the towers of the town appeared once more on the horizon. Lights blinked from rooftops. The desert wind carried the familiar sound of market chatter and footsteps on stone. Saya stood at the edge of a dune, looking down on the place that had once buried her. Stay here, she told Kale. They still want you dead if they see us both. I'll wait in the canyon, he said, trusting her completely. As the twin suns began to rise, Saya stepped into the town alone. No hood, no helmet, no fear. The guards saw her first there. Mouths opened, but no words came. Girl they had left in chains, starved, punished, and forgotten, was walking freely into the center square. Some people backed away, others stared in shock. Whispers grew louder. That's her. Is it a ghost? She should be dead. She walked to the same stone pillar, the one she had once been bound to, one stained with dried blood. Hers stopped in front of it, turned around and spoke. I was chained here. Her voice rang through the square, strong, clear. I was left to die because of my blood, because of who my parents were. No trial, no chance, just silence. You all passed by me. You all threw stones. You all turned your faces away. No one spoke. Even the guards stood still. But I didn't die, she said. I broke the chains you gave me. I survived the pit you buried me in. I walked across the desert with nothing but pain in my bones and fire in my heart, and I came back not to ask for your forgiveness, but to show you that you failed. A child near the edge of the crowd whispered, she's not cursed. An old woman stepped forward. Who helped you? Saya looked past them toward the canyon in the distance. A human. The only one who stopped, the only one who saw me, not as broken but as worth saving. A young guard shifted nervously. You escaped the mines. I walked out, she said, because someone believed I could. Silence again. Then from the back of the crowd, the town elder emerged, the same one who had once told Kale she was born guilty. His face was pale. You should have died out there. Saya walked up to him slowly. She didn't raise a weapon. She didn't yell. She only looked him in the eyes and said, but I didn't. She turned, walking past the silent crowd. No one stopped her. No one dared. Kale was waiting at the edge of the canyon when she returned. Well, he asked, rising to his feet. They listened, she said. They didn't change, but they heard me. That's more than most ever get. She nodded. It's enough for now. They looked out at the desert together, wind brushing their faces. Kale smiled. Where to next? Saya looked toward the stars. Somewhere new, she said, where no one knows my chains, where I choose who I become. Kale stepped beside her. Then let's go. They walked into the morning light, two souls scarred but unbroken. Not victims, not prisoners, survivors, and legends in the making.